are together in the Shulchan Aruch on Siman Kuf Samechet 168. So if you need to find a source, you're welcome to go to Sefaria. I will not monitor the chat box, but if somebody who's tech savvy wants to find the Sefaria link and post it for everybody else, you're more than welcome to do that. But I won't be reading the comments that happen until after the class. So you're going to click Halacha, Shulchan Aruch. You're going to go to the first volume of Shulchan Aruch, or HaShamayim. You're going to find chapter 168. And from there, you're going to look for Siman, Seif Chet. So it's going to be 168, subsection 8. In our book, it's page 450, because we didn't get yet to 451.
Okay, thank you.
See? We can finally ask page numbers. Where's Zev when you need a page number? We are on page 450. I'm reading in the notes of the Halacha Berurah. And that's not in front of you on Sefaria. So I know we have Chana here who's new. Welcome, Bucha Haba. But it's not going to be on Sefaria anywhere else, but you'll listen and we'll follow along together. So now the question is, we've discussed Pataba B'Kisnin. We've talked about the different kinds of foods that are eaten that are maybe bread. They have the right ingredients to be bread, but they have other ingredients or other uses that people eat them for that don't necessarily mean that their blessing should be Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz. And rather, their blessing is Borei Min Hamzonot. And it stays a mizonot until you eat enough. That's called Kviut Seuda. For Sephardim, Kviut Seuda is how much? How much you have to eat in order for a Sephardi to make a Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz on a cake that's otherwise mizonot? The amount of 4 eggs. So 4 eggs. What size eggs? Don't be an Orthodox Jew. Look at the real numbers. 4 eggs, whatever egg you have in your refrigerator right now, not an ostrich egg, not a dinosaur egg, not another animal, just 4 eggs in your refrigerator. Someone asked me after our last show, they have large eggs, extra large eggs. Whatever egg you have in your refrigerator is an egg for the purpose of making a Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz. 4 of them is considered Kviut Seuda. We said for the Ashkenazim, there is no objective measurement per se. And rather, what Ashkenazim would do is, if they eat a little bit, and that for them is a meal, that requires Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz. Or if they eat a lot, and it's not a meal, so in the other direction also, it's not a Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz, but it stays a mizonot. So now we're dealing with Birkat Glida Kaseta or Birkat Krembo. We're dealing with modern Israeli foods that are really not good for you, but they're here anyways. We discussed last week the blessing on cheesecake. So you have a little bit of crust and a lot of cheesecake. What bracha do you make? So what we said before, we should learn that ice cream that you have nowadays, neither of these are Hebrew words, you put biscuits or wafers on both sides, in the middle is the glida, is the ice cream. So this is an ice cream sandwich. Imagine 2 wafers with ice cream in between, or 2 cookies with ice cream in between, something to this effect. Even though for you the ice cream is the more important, you're eating ice cream. What are you eating? I'm eating ice cream. Even though it's more important, nonetheless, and it is the main food you're eating, Halakha would require you to recite a mizonot on the cookie itself, and that would cover the ice cream, so you would not make a shakol ni'abidvaro on the ice cream in an ice cream sandwich. And you should first eat from the biscuit. וטוב יותר שיפריד תחילת הביסקוויט או הוואפל מן הגלידה ויברך עליו מזונות ויכוון בדעתו שלא לפתור את הגלידה ולאחר מכן יברך שהכל על הגלידה. What's better though to do in this situation would be to separate some of the cookie from the ice cream to recite a mizonot on the cookie in the ice cream, and to recite a shehakol on the ice cream itself, and then to eat them together. I'm thinking in my head what it is that I do. Haven't had an ice cream sandwich in a very long time. Min hastam, I make a mizonot on the cookie and then a shehakol on the ice cream, having them separately. But if you were to eat them together, the mizonot does not become a tafel. The mizonot does not become secondary to the ice cream because of its status as a mizonot. V'hu adin, the same halacha applies, לעניין קרם מצופה בשוקולד שנותנים מתחתיו ביסקוויט. Krembo. Does someone here have a picture of a krembo for me? I saw Rabbanit posted something before. Maybe she'll send you a link, but if you put into your Google browser, krembo, so just so you know this beast that you're talking about. This is an Israeli dessert which has a round cookie at the bottom. The closest I can think of an American cookie that might be the same, they have these cookies called vanillins or something like that. They're little vanilla wafers. Imagine that sits at the bottom. On top of it is a mound of marshmallow cream that's at least 8 or 9 times larger than the biscuit that's there. And the whole thing is covered, thank you Rabbanit, I guess Walmart sells crembos. It's covered in chocolate, a very thin layer of chocolate, so the whole thing looks like chocolate. And now the question is, which beracha do you recite on the krembo? I don't know if you would laugh or you would cry at the amount of halachic literature there is in Israel surrounding the controversy of which bracha do you make on this krembo. And I'll tell you, someone recently was talking to me about something, and I wrote to something else. I'll give you an example. The Kotel HaMa'aravi. So now you have the Kotel, the Western Wall in Jerusalem. And the question is about the Kotel, what do you do? How do you arrange tefillot there? What happens if there are women who want to come to the Kotel and wear tefillin and read Sifrei Torah? And someone asked me this question. I said, listen, I have a few things to say, but none of them are important because I'm not the chief rabbi of the Kotel, nor am I the chief rabbi of Jerusalem, nor am I the Ashkenazi or Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel. There are people who get paid a lot of money to sit in these places and deal with real life questions that are national questions that face the Jewish people. I am paid for things like what bracha do you make at a krembo? That's what we're around for. See, when the chief rabbis begin to write books on krembos, and rabbis like us, lower down the totem pole, have to answer questions about what do you do when people want to come pray at the Kotel, and you don't like how they look. I don't know what bothers you about the people at the Kotel. I don't need to be answering questions that are out of my jurisdiction, and rabbis that are bigger, Yani, should be dealing with big national issues. We can handle the kashrut questions on Facebook. We can do that. We need the chief rabbis to do something bigger. I now got a book, in the mail, mamash, Erev Shabbat, I got a book, Dibrot Eliyahu, volume 6, I want to say. It's a book of halachot, questions and answers from Rabbi Eliyahu Abergel, who's the Av Bet Adin, the chief justice of all the Batei Din in Jerusalem. Somebody who I know personally. His son is someone who I know. My parents know him much better than I. But my friend, a dear friend of mine who studied with Rav Peretz and today is a big student of Rabbi Abergel, took me in the past to visit him. I was in his bedin to see a process of chalitza, of yibum, of a number of different things that have happened over the years in his bedin. And I flipped open the book, and it says, Rabbi Eliyahu Abergel, in very tiny letters. Most people, when they print books, they want their name to be very prominent. You almost wonder if it's the title of the book. Then you switch to the next page, where there's the copyright information, and it says over there, Rabbi Eliyahu Abergel, and his personal cell phone number. I was thinking to myself, that's chief rabbi. He's the head of all the Batei Din. But it makes sense he's the head of the Batei Din because he answers people's phone calls. People have questions they need to ask him. It's a person who's approachable and who deals with very serious issues. So back to us and the blessing on the krembo. V'yesh ta'am v'chashivut gam lebiskvit. There also is importance and taste to the cookie at the bottom of the krembo. אלא שהקרם חשוב בעיניו יותר. But they are eating this dessert because of the cream inside of the dessert. שמברך מזונות על הביסקוויט ופותר את הקרם. So it's proper in this situation to make a mizonot on the biscuit, and that will include the cream without another blessing. וטוב יותר, but again it's proper, שיפרידם תחילה, you should separate them first, ויברך על הביסקוויט מזונות, ויכוון בדעתו שלו לפתור את הקרם, ואחר כך יברך שהכל על הקרם, you should separate the cookie, make a mizonot on the cookie, eat the cream, and when you make a mizonot on the cookie, have in mind it does not cover the cream that I'm about to eat right now. ואם אוכל תחילה מן הקרם לבד, מברך עליו שהכל, ואחר כך, כשבא לאכול את הביסקוויט, מברך עליו מזונות. And if he's first eating from the cream, so you can make a shakol, and then afterwards you're going to eat cookies, so then you make a mezonot, and then everybody should be happy. That's the blessing for a krembo. Now here's a more realistic scenario, at least for some of us, who you may occasionally eat ice cream somewhere. On page 451, V'haochel glida betoch gavia, if you're eating ice cream inside of a cone, ha'asui mimin dagan, which is made of from the 5 grains, ve'en lagavia tam v'chashivut klal, the ice cream cone itself has no flavor at all. Are you familiar with such ice cream cones? Who here is an expert in ice cream cones? Anybody had a summer internship at Haagen-Dazs or something? So I'll tell you how ice cream cones work. Dvar Miriam, thank you.
Find the mute button. So, there's the 2 kinds of cones. You have the cake cones and you have those waffle cones. Waffle cones definitely have a flavor and a crunchy, but the cake cones, like I said, they're like styrofoam. They're just more holding the ice cream.
There you go. So that's your answer. There's 2 kinds of ice cream cones, at least that are out there. By the way, you should know that in the olden days, before my trying to be a little healthier days, I don't like ice cream. Ice cream, cold things in my mouth don't really do it for me. But the cones, those waffle cones, those are amazing cookies. I don't know why they don't sell them just as cookies. So I used to buy ice cream cones just to eat the cones, not to eat the ice cream. I see Daron shaking his head at me like, how do you? It's so sacrilegious. But it's okay. That's what I used to do. Those cones are a mizonot for sure. Unlike the other cones, which even on their own they don't have a flavor. So what's the purpose of the ice cream cone that doesn't have flavor to it? What's it there for? Min hastam, it's there to hold the ice cream. That's what it's there for. It's there to have something to hold your ice cream in. So now you're eating ice cream in a cup. The cone is made from one of the 5 grains. It's flour. Ve'en lagavia tam v'chashivut kalal. But this cone has no flavor at all. Ve'lo na'asa kedei lo'chlo b'fnei atzmo. And nobody made these cones so you should eat them on their own. Ela rak kedei lachzik ha'glida betocho. They only have these cones so you can hold the ice cream in it. In this situation, mevarech shakol al haglida. In this case, you make a shakol on the ice cream. Upoter et hagavia. And that shakol on the ice cream covers the cone which has no flavor, and you would not make a mizonot on that cone even though it's made from one of the 5 grains. ואפילו אם אחר אכילת הגלידה אוכל מה שנשאר מקצת הגביע, אינו מברך עליו כלל. And if you finish your ice cream, and now all that's left is half a cone that doesn't have ice cream anymore, so now you're eating just the cone. There's no more ice cream that you're eating with the cone. What beracha do you recite on the cone now? Nothing. Nothing. אבל אם אכל תחילה את הגלידה לבדה, ולאחר שסיים אכילתו בא לאכול את הגביע לבדו, מברך עליו מזונות. But if you are actually eating ice cream and you're only using the cone as your bowl, that's a cup, that's all you eat out all the ice cream and you leave the whole cone to eat afterwards. In that case, you're showing that that cone is something that you eat. And because of that, you recite a mizonot on that cone. Now what happens in a situation where you're eating the other kind of cone? Dvar Miriam called it a waffle cone. If this cone has flavor or importance in its own right, and it's not only there to hold the ice cream, it adds flavor, it's there because people eat it. וכגון גביע שממלאים את הגלידה בתוכו ומצפים אותם בשוקולד ואוכלים אותם ביחד. You have sometimes an ice cream cone. It's been a hot day in San Diego. Now we're talking about ice cream and cones and chocolate coverings. You take the ice cream cone, you fill it with ice cream, and then they coat it with chocolate, which in Hebrew they call it a tilon. Mevarech alav mizonot. You recite a mizonot on this. Upoter et haglida, and that covers the ice cream. ואם מתחיל קודם באכילת הגלידה, מברך שהכל על הגלידה, ואחר כך, מברך מזונות על הגביע. But if you just begin with ice cream, which I think many people do, they're holding a cone, it has ice cream on top of it. They start the ice cream. When they get to the cone is when they recite a blessing of Borei Minei Mzonot. I said something before I want to elaborate on. Chaim David Halevi told us on Thursday night that we have an obligation to keep halacha and agadah separate, but the two of them complement each other. I said something previously about chief rabbis and about the obligation that chief rabbis have to take care of real Jewish issues. Those of you who know me know that I don't necessarily buy into a chief rabbinate system. But if such a chief rabbinate system can at all justify its existence, it's precisely because they take care of things that us regular rabbis can't do. When you hear of chief rabbis that are involved in things that, what do we need you for? We have enough rabbis that do those things. It makes you wonder why we even have a pope in Jerusalem in the first place. And this is something that it bothers me because there are solutions to big problems that we have in the Jewish community. And those problems can have solutions, but they have to be suggested somewhere higher up the food chain so that the nation can buy into those solutions. It's really nice if I have a solution for something, but at the end of the day, yeah, this is my Beit HaKnesset, this is my Kehillat, you are the ones who learn to out with me. The rest of the world doesn't care. And when you have a person who has tens of thousands of people, other rabbis, yeshivot, institutions, they have a hand in the law. They can change certain laws in Israel to conform to halakha better. So you expect that those people will use their influence, what Rabbeinu Avraham, the son of the Rambam, calls koach hashpa'ah. Sometimes people ask you for a favor, and you always think, well, I don't have enough money to help them. And Rabbeinu Avraham ben Rambam says, why do you always think of money when it comes to helping people? There are other ways to help people that don't involve money. For some people, it's helping them with what you have. So you have a home. You can't pay someone's bill, but I can give you a place to live for a little bit. I can't give you a place to live because my kids take up all the room. I have food for you, so you can't afford food. I can share with you my food. Why do you only have guests on Shabbat? You can have guests every day of the week. I'm not, COVID restrictions aside. I knew a couple in New York, a Hasidic couple. I went to visit them, and after we finished dinner, their kids went to sleep, and I saw that the husband and wife started setting up the dining room all over again. Put down a tablecloth, set up plates and tables and chairs and place settings. And I said, what's happening now? Another meal? And they said, yeah, we actually are having another meal. There are a number of homeless people in the neighborhood, Jewish people that are part of the Hasidic community in Bar Park or wherever else, and they don't have a place to eat dinner. So every single night we have them for dinner. But we don't know who we're bringing into our house, and we're not sure how our kids will interact with them, and we don't want to expose our children to things that we're not comfortable with. And so what we do is, as soon as we finish our dinner and the kids go to bed, we clear the table, and we host people, like a normal Shabbat dinner, every single night of the week. And they had maybe 10 or 15 people that night for dinner. Food. The man worked in a grocery store. He had a little bit of access to food that maybe you and I don't have. And he was able to share that with other people. Money he didn't have to share. She didn't have hours of her day, but she had a night, every single night of dinner. I would love to see one of us try it, myself included. It's not an easy thing. Rabbeinu Avraham ben Rambam says sometimes it's less than that, but it can accomplish more. You can use your koach hashpa'ah, your strength of influence. You know people. You have friends, places. You have co-workers that maybe owe you a favor that you did for them something once. You know someone's unemployed. You can put in a good word for them. What's it going to cost you? What's it going to hurt you? You know somebody in the community who's looking to hire, and you can make that shidduch, that connection. Why not? By talking about shidduchim. Shidduchim is a great example. You know somebody who's looking. You know somebody, not what they do today, where, that's a boy, that's a girl, let's set them up and let's see what happens. That's not a shidduch. Everybody is a boy and a girl you can set up with each other and see what happens. It doesn't work for anybody. But you know a person, they have good midot, they're compatible with the other person that you know. So why not get involved? Why not help? If it's something they want. It's not, sometimes people don't want you to help. That problem exists also. They say there's once a guy, he used to always go to family events. And his aunts would always see him and they would pinch his cheeks and they would say, "Oh, B'ezrat Hashem, soon by you, there'll be a wedding by you soon." And he's one wedding, 2 weddings, 20 weddings into the family, and he's the single guy in the family who's not married. And the aunts come pinch his cheeks, "B'ezrat Hashem, soon by you." He just said, I'm done. If they're not going to respect that, I'm not interested. So just leave me alone. And he decided not to come to any of the family weddings. For 10 years, he didn't show up to any family weddings. And then out of nowhere, 10 years in, he comes back on the scene, and he's coming to every single wedding. And one of the younger cousins who remembers a little of what happened, he notices not only does he come to the weddings, but nobody says anything to him about getting married. And they're all coming to this younger cousin and giving him advice. "Hey, B'ezrat Hashem, soon by you, you'll get married." And so he goes to the older cousin and says, "Listen, tell me, what did you do? Why are you back here, and how did you get them to stop pestering you?" So you know what happened? Remember Aunt Rivka that passed away? So at the funeral, I went to all the aunts and uncles, and I pinched their cheeks, and I said, "B'ezrat Hashem, soon by you." And ever since then, nobody bothers me at any weddings. Sometimes you stick your head in places. My mom is going to kill me for that joke. I say you get yourself in places that nobody asks you to get involved in. But there are times and there are places where people do ask you for help. And how often do we say, really we could help. Really there is a person at work we could talk to, but we don't want to take responsibility for somebody. We don't want to use up all our favors. How many times did you get fired from a job? Or did you quit a job because of the work conditions there, and you never called in any of your favors? And you never used up any of those vacation days? How many times did it happen to a person? You make calculations, but what happened? You never even got so you also lost an opportunity to help somebody else, and you didn't get anything from it. We have a koach hashpa'ah. There are problems I can think about in the Jewish community today. Too many to list. A problem I've been dealing with recently, you have what they call the aguna crisis. You have women who are married to bnei blial, evil men. What do you mean evil? Evil, if the Satan had to come take lessons, he would come take lessons from these people. I'm not speaking lightly now, this is seriously. These are people who know that the way the system of halakha works is that a man can divorce his wife and a woman cannot divorce her husband. So what does he do? He's living in California, he's living in New York, anywhere else he lives. And he's married to somebody, they have whatever they have in their life. I'm not telling you why they get divorced or not, valid, no, who cares? Now they get divorced. And he knows that she will never be able to get married unless he gives her a get. So there are different avenues here. There's the avenue of extortion. If it's for money, don't think money is not a thing. I did a wedding in Israel for a couple who the lady was waiting for 7 years for a get. You know when she got her get? She got her get a day before the wedding. A day before the wedding. Who helped? The rabbinate helped. They pestered the guy, but finally the guy agreed. He agreed to divorce her if she brought him 150,000 shekels in cash in a suitcase before her wedding. So he helped, the rabbinate helped, they did the get. And a day before her wedding, instead of spending 150,000 shekels on her own wedding, or on her future apartment that she wants, or whatever else her husband and her want to do, she paid it to some crook who used a system of halakha to abuse her. Now that story ended. So you can say 7 years, 150,000 shekels, it ended at least. It ended, fine. But there are women who it doesn't end for. They're stuck in this nightmare forever. And you live in a place like the United States where you can't compel someone to do something religious in a secular court of law. In Israel, there are laws in play. In Israel, if the chief rabbinate wants, they can arrest a person. I'll tell you, Rabbi Eliyahu Abel, whose bedin I sat on, not once and not twice has he used his power as a Av Bedin to put people in prison in contempt of his bedin for not giving their wife a get. There's a tool that exists in the state of Israel and not always used properly in the state of Israel. Talking about America, So they have all these fancy prenuptial agreements. The RCA prenup, everybody has a prenup nowadays. What is a prenup? How does a prenup work? A halachic prenup. Everybody gets so excited about it. Everybody's got to sign one. They make parties and sign that. This is the Chamorosh of Mashiach. It's the donkey of Mashiach that came. What's so special about this prenup? What does it do? Anybody know how it works?
What I had heard with some people I know who did them was the goal was to create a way where the woman could get out and not have to worry about the man being unwilling to give a get.
Right.
That's what I had heard.
So it does help a woman secure a get in the United States of America, for example, where you can't force a get in court. But how does it work? Anyone know the mechanism of how it works? How do you get around American law? So I'll tell you how it works, because you think that someone invented a great thing. In American law, a contract is valid. The way to enforce a contract, though, is that there should be some repercussion for not holding up the contract. So this couple, before they get married, agree that in the event, and actually this is a pretty egalitarian contract in terms of, in the event of him not wanting to give a get, or in the case where she does not want to receive a get. So here's the interesting thing. In Ashkenazi law, custom actually, a woman can also refuse to accept a get. In Talmudic law and Rambam's Halakha and Shulchan Aruch, that concept doesn't exist. But let's say that in today's world, in any case, they wait for a woman to accept the get. So if either side refuses to give or receive the get, the divorce contract, also they first agree to go to Bedin. And if the Bedin believes that there's valid reason for a get, so it's not like one of the spouses can just pull out the get card. They have to go to a Bedin first, a process they have to go to first. If the Bedin that they already agreed on before marriage decides that they need a get, and one party refuses to give or receive the get, the Bedin will hold them in contempt of this contract. I'm not using the correct legal terminology. And they'll have to pay $150 every single day to either the other side or the Bedin, I don't remember exactly which, I'm assuming to the other side, for every day that they don't come back to the Bedin. So how does it work? It hurts their pocket. There's a person, he has an ex-wife, he's trying to make her life miserable, for whatever reason. Sometimes for no reason. Sometimes it's not because he wants kids, he doesn't care. He doesn't want the house, he just wants to make her life miserable because he can. So now, he says, okay, I don't want to give you a get. They go to Bedin, and the wife pulls out this document, and according to California law, New York law, there's actually different contracts depending on the state a person is in. The court, the secular court system, can now hold him responsible for this payment that he owes every single day that he agreed on before he got married. Because a financial penalty, the state of California, for example, can uphold. A religious clause they can't uphold. And so that works for a person like me. Where am I going to get $150 a day from? B'ezras Hashem, I'll never need it. But where am I going to get it from? So for a person like me, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, you're not a hero anymore. You got to pay rent. And it works. But it doesn't work for people that have millions and millions of dollars in their bank account. To make my wife's life miserable? $150 a day? It's like paying someone to do the job for me. And don't think it's an abstract case. Mamash now, a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, I don't remember when it happened in the news. There's a guy who for 10 years has been making his payments just to keep her stuck. And you think the Jewish community would ostracize him? Yeah, right. He donates a lot of money to a lot of different rabbis in different synagogues in different places, and that's all that talks. Money talks. So where's the solution? You could also sign a contract that someone owes $150 a day. Chacham Uziel, who is the first Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel, already in Turkey came up with a clause that could be entered in the Ketubah. In the clause, again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not using proper English, American law properly, but I'll use the closest definition I can get to in Hebrew to English. He created a Ketubah that it's a marriage by proxy. You're getting married through the Bet Adin, the local Bet Adin. So I am getting married to my wife through the Bet Hadin. They are the ones giving me permission to get married. And if for whatever reason I disobey the words of the Bedin and refuse to give my wife a get, then the Bet Hadin says, well, we never gave you permission to get married in the first place. And retroactively, they annul your marriage, and your wife is free to go without a get. She's considered a single woman. No get, no Bedin, no money, no courts, nothing. The moment the Bedin decides that she's free, she's free. So what happened? It created a upheaval. What do you mean? Rav Uziel, don't you know? Halakha doesn't work that way. We have a few yeshiva guys here in the room. When it comes to undoing things, you can undo something with an equal action. You can undo one action with an equal action. You can undo a written contract with another written contract. You can undo a verbal agreement with a verbal agreement. But in order to undo an action of marriage, you have to undo it through a get. It can't be that you can just oker lemafreya. You can retroactively uproot something. Rav Uziel heard, he responded, he realized that people weren't going to accept this clause, and he quickly saw that if people were not going to accept this clause, then the woman that he would free from their problems would be considered, interestingly enough, adulterers somewhere else. Their children would be considered mamzerim. He said, fine, if you're not willing to accept my solution, then at least offer a different solution. You don't have to accept my solution. Come up with a different one. And Rav Uziel writes, come up with a different one before this problem gets worse than it already is. He wrote those words almost 100 years ago. And today, you have chief rabbis who can write to you halachot on which blessing you make on bamba. But who needs a chief rabbi to tell me which blessing to recite on bamba? There are men and women in the world who are being abused because of a system of halakha that you have the ability to change. Why don't you do your job? We'll take care of the bamba. There are issues in Israel, church and state. You know, we spoke here about Chacham Faur 2 weeks ago. It's already a month, by the way. Already a month since his ptira, since he passed away. Chacham Faur's son put out a video. Maybe yesterday, 2 days ago. I already lost track of my days and my nights. Chacham Faur's son, Rabbi Abe Faur, this is public knowledge. He shared a video, but the video was in Hebrew, which is why I didn't forward it to everyone in the group, about his personal situation with a Chavra Kadisha, with a burial society in Israel. Now, by the way, their reputation precedes them, so I don't need a video from yesterday to tell me about the burial society in Israel. The Chavra Kadisha, we have somebody here in our community who went to bury his uncle in Israel. Somebody that we know. You all know him, those of you in San Diego. He went to bury his uncle in Israel. In the middle of the funeral procession, what I mean the middle of the funeral, they're holding the coffin and they're walking to the grave. And they're saying all kinds of tehillim, whatever they say. And they stop and they do the go, and they stop and all the minhagim of Yerushalayim proper. And the head of the Chavra Kadisha, and one of those stops, so he pauses the procession, he goes over to the man that we know, and he tells him, hey, you're from America, right? You have a lot of money. Why don't we sell you a better plot? There's a better view here than the place. You're not going to find it in 20 years. There's a better corner that's right off the main road. We can arrange that spot for you. That's why that's so nice. He's like, no, not nice. You have to pay for it. He said, how much you have to pay for it? I don't remember if it was 16,000 shekels or 20,000 shekels more. I'd say $5,000, $6,000, something like that. He said, do you want to pay for your uncle to have a better spot? He says, yeah, look, in the middle of the funeral. Fine, okay, I'll pay for it. Great, so we're going to go there? He says, no. We have to go to the office to process your credit card. He said, we're in the middle of a funeral. He says, don't worry, my guys are pros. They're just going to say more tehillim. We'll stop here, say tehillim, we'll go to the office, we'll swipe your card, we'll come back and bury him in the right spot. All the while, meto muta lefanav, the dead body is there. So here's the story. Rabbi Abe Faur. He got the notification that his father had passed away in Netanya in Israel. And so immediately he calls a travel agent to see if there are flights going to Israel. It's a coronavirus time. And it turns out that actually that day there was a flight leaving, and the next flight to Israel would only be in 4 days from now. So he got on that plane, and it gets to the airport. You know, it looks like someone whose father just passed away. He's in a totally different state. From the people who took his luggage, the one who checked him in, everybody, we're sorry for your loss. We're offering our condolences. He gets onto the airplane, and he knows that in order to get into Israel, you can't enter as a foreign citizen unless you have a death certificate proving that you're there for that. Israel's closed off its borders for the most part. And so he told his son, the grandson of Chacham, who's living in Israel, to please go to the Chevra Kadisha and get the death certificate to give it to him so that when he gets to the airport, he can be let into the country. Now, as he's in the airport and he's waiting to get to Israel, he's making plans with the Chevra Kadisha, payment arrangements, whatever else needs to be arranged. Part of what needs to be arranged is what time is the funeral going to be at. And they give him a number of times. And he says, we have to do 5 o'clock in the afternoon because there are many synagogues in the United States that are planning to zoom in to the funeral live to hear the Hespedim, to eulogize this great rabbi who just passed away. He literally has thousands of students around the world, and they want to be involved in his levaya. Not to mention family members that couldn't make it. So they agreed on 5 o'clock. He paid them, set the time, whatever. That's going to be 10 o'clock, I guess, in New York. He lands in Israel, only to find out that the Chevra Kadisha wouldn't release the death certificate to his son. So now he's stuck in the airport. Happens to be, Baruch Hashem, you know, Jews, we all know people who know people who know people. In his frenzy, he knew someone who knew someone who knew someone at the Israeli consulate, who managed through protektia, they call it in Israel, through connections, to get him the death certificate. They finally let him into Israel. He gets in his taxi or whatever it is to get to Netanya. He has to get to Netanya now. They called him. The Chevra Kadisha decided it wasn't convenient for them to do the funeral at 5 o'clock. They moved the funeral up to 1 o'clock. His own father's funeral. He's the only child going to be at the funeral. He makes it to the Levaya after all the eulogies, after all, already, he's making it towards the end. He shows up, and some, Hasidic guy from the Chevra Kadisha, I'm saying that not positively, when you see a religious Jew, you expect they're going to treat you a certain way. He sarcastically said that only John Wayne has a hat as big as this guy. And the guy comes over and says, you're the son. Come, we need you to identify the body. So he goes inside to identify the body. You meet a religious guy, you're at the cemetery, say something to you. If the El Al flight attendant could say something, and all the workers in the airline could say something to you, and the person who took your baggage in New York Airport could say something to you, all he said is, it's him? Yeah, sign here, go to plot 207, wait outside. Okay, so he goes over there, he waits outside. Now comes out his father's coffin, not a coffin in Israel, his body to be buried. Chacham Va'ur was an old school Sephardic Chacham. He was very particular in the way people pronounce Hebrew, very particular in the type of tefillot he used. And he asked the man of the Chevra Kadisha, listen, I'm a rabbi, my father was a rabbi. Is it possible that, we're not going to mess with the funeral, but is it possible that we read the Tehillim? Can I read the Tehillim at the funeral? And the guy turns to him and he says, listen to me, you do your job and I'm going to do my job. And then he tells the grandson who's a Chazan, a Sephardic Chazan, says, you don't even belong here. Go stand on the side. So the whole funeral is Akavya b'Mahalla Eloimer, the whole thing that's not Syrian and that's not Sephardic in any way. And he's just in tzar. He's in tzar that at the end of the funeral, he says he wants to also say some Tehillim for his father. So he takes out a Tehillim and he starts to pray. And this guy from the Chevra Kadisha goes crazy. They have to literally hold him back. And he says, why don't you guys go bury somebody else? What right do you have to be buried here? Take your dad and get out of here. Something to that effect. And he says, what right do we have to be here? My father's been living in Netanya for 20 years. He's a regular lecturer at the chief rabbi of Netanya synagogue, Rabbi Shlush. He's a senior lecturer in Netanya University for the last 17 years. What right do we have to be here? He said, in which other country in the world do you go to a funeral and you have no say in what happens in your own family's funeral? You pay the money. These people they get paid to do their job. You have to bribe them all kinds of other money to get it done. You can't even say Tehillim the way you want to say Tehillim. I did a askara now in a cemetery, first year askara for somebody. We came, we said some Tehillim together, we said Kaddish together, and then the deceased wife wanted to share some words, the daughter wanted to share some words, the son wanted to share some words. What's wrong with that? Nothing. It was 15 of us, 6 feet distancing, all wearing masks, we shared some words. Do you know that in Israel, if you're in Yerushalayim, and you are, God forbid, I'm not speaking about you, I'm speaking about somebody else, somebody's daughter or somebody's wife wants to share some words, do you know that they won't let? Because women don't speak in public? Do you know the rabbi who does the funeral? It's not even a rabbi that you choose. It's the same guy who you hire at the wedding office to do the wedding. You don't know who that is either. They send some guys waiting for his envelope under the table. It's bad enough when the rabbi you know is waiting for the envelope under the table. Here's a rabbi you don't even know. He's waiting for his envelope under the table. Now you have another random person doing, one of the most vulnerable moments in a person's life. Where? In Israel. How about you know me? I'm not I've long ago told you that I'm not part of any denomination. But you know which denominations I'm certainly not a part of. In Israel, in Haifa, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, there's a conservative rabbi. He likes to create controversy. He did a wedding for somebody in his community, one of his people. And it's not, he's a conservative rabbi who is not allowed to do weddings in Israel. So what happened? Someone in the local rabbinate reported him to the police. 5 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, they broke down his door, took him in handcuffs to the police station for questioning. Don't worry, they quickly released him because they realized it would be a PR nightmare for the state of Israel. But can you imagine that the only country that you might be able to think of in which a rabbi could be committing a crime for doing a Jewish wedding would be none other than Israel? Can you imagine if someone here told me that I'm not allowed to officiate your wedding because I didn't take the right exam in the right place somewhere? Can you imagine such a thing? When I come to Israel and I want to do a giyur and I'm looking for a mikveh, if I do a giyur in Israel, it's a federal offense. It's a crime. By the way, in Israel, they passed a law that not only is the rabbi who does the illegal wedding guilty, but also the couple can face imprisonment, I think up to 2 years each spouse who got married. So I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to solve some other problem that you're having with rogue rabbis and weddings. But is that the way to do it? You have chief rabbis, they can't fix the problems that they know of in front of their face. Maybe they know about the problems and they don't want to fix them. Maybe they are the problems. But all of us who support Israel and are proud of our connections to Israel, I think that we identify very openly as a openly Zionistic community. Don't get confused and think that just because we support Israel, that you have no right to critique things that happen there. At the end of the day, I want to go home, and you want to go home, and all of us want to go home. To go home to where, though? To go home to a place where doing what we're doing right now might be considered a crime because someone passed a law? That makes sense to you? This is Russia of 70 years ago. It's something you have to fight for. It's your country also. Israel is your home. I don't care where you think you live. It's your place. and to demand from those people, those leaders who are higher up the food chain, even in this country, stop dealing with the bamba. Please don't certify. They're now in this country. They're certifying marijuana. Don't certify marijuana to be kosher. Can't you come up with something better with your time to do? You have no other endeavors the Jewish community, problems the Jewish community is facing. We don't have issues. The whole world is burning up because of racism. We don't have issues of racism in our own community. You're too busy dealing with pot farmers that you can't take care of the people that need your help. It doesn't make sense to me. And there's a time where we have to say, we're going to deal with the krembo. Rabbis, we got it covered. We have you because we expect that you can deal with other things. And if you can't, so then why do we have you? What's the purpose of it? What do I need a national organization of rabbis to share with me their opinion on current American politics, or the president scratched his nose, or he said, who cares? If I have a national organization of American rabbis, I hope they're going to do something for American Jewish community, which falls apart every single day, more and more and more. Do something that makes this religion relevant to people who are running away right and left. You would think. But till then, we'll talk about krimbos and the problems. And we hope that somebody will step up to the plate and deal with them. Let's do one last halakha. This halakha, we're going to end this part of Shulchan Aruch. And starting tomorrow, we'll do the laws of the 3 weeks. B'ezrat Hashem. It's one last halakha in Maran on page 451. This you're going to find in the Sefaria link. It's going to be chapter 168, halakha 9. Baruch, it's amazing. I didn't even have to tell you to turn off the camera for this one. Maran writes, you heard that? Page 451. Pat Gamu. Real bread. So now no more mizonot bread, no more borekas, no more. Now real bread. What is real bread? Flour and water and whatever else you put in your bread. Because real bread like challah. No, challah is probably not a real bread. Real bread like a pita. Real bread like a lafa. Real bread like naan. Real bread like any bread that you know, without the cinnamons and the raisin and the sugar and the maple syrup. And you eat real bread. Pachot mikizayit, but it's less than an olive amount. How big is an olive? How big is an olive? Yeah, very good. An olive. That's an olive. Very people say olive is. It used to be an olive. Olive has always been an olive. If you eat less than the size of an olive, mivarech halav hamotzi. So imagine a breadcrumb. So think about this. You're in a restaurant and you wash your hands for bread, and they have those little like croutons over there. Really, those are not croutons. They're just old bread from yesterday. They put in the container next to the sink under the soap, so you get a little bit of lemony fresh hamotzi lechem min haaretz as well. And this little crouton, is it hamotzi? Can you make a hamotzi on this? Tell me why yes.
Yes, if you're going to be eating more.
What if I'm not going to be eating more?
Well, if you're eating less than a kazayas, then you make a mazonos. But that's if you know in advance how much you're going to be eating.
Right. So now, let's say I'm just eating less. I know that I'm going to eat one soup crouton. So Maran writes here, Pad Gamur, if it's real bread, Afilu pachot mikezait. And by the way, I shouldn't have used the example of a soup crouton. Chana, you're right. This could technically fall into the category of patava b'kislin, which is crunchy. And because it's crunchy, it might not qualify as real bread. So let's say it's fresh croutons. They're there. They're a little cube, the size of a die. You know, you'd roll it to gamble with. And this thing is there for you to make a hamotzi on. Mevarech alav hamotzi. Says Maran, you recite hamotzi on this. Aval la'acharav eno mevarech klum. You don't recite any after blessing, not al michya and not birkat hamazon, because you didn't eat the size of an olive. Even to be obligated in al michya, you have to eat the size of an olive. To be obligated in b'rei nefashot also, there's no after blessing because you didn't consume enough food to recite an after blessing. And so it doesn't make a difference how much bread you eat or how little bread you eat. Bread is always hamotzi lechem min haaretz. So I'll give you an example. You're sitting around your Shabbat table, they cleared the table, you said Birkat Hamazon, and now there's like a little crust of bread over there, some crumbs of the bread. Why would you throw it away? You pick it up, I don't know, with some sesame seeds, you start to eat it. L'maaseh, that bread requires the hamotzi lechem min haaretz blessing. It's bread. You don't have to do Birkat Hamazon afterwards, but it requires the blessing of hamotzi lechem min haaretz. And that means that when we get back to the Shulchan Aruch, we're going to have a real conversation about pirui lechem. If you look on page 452, Halacha Yod, Maran talks about pirui lechem, which are breadcrumbs. And depending on how you use the breadcrumbs, are you cooking the breadcrumbs again? Are you sprinkling some of the breadcrumbs? Are you coating schnitzel batter with breadcrumbs and then frying it? What are you doing with the breadcrumbs is going to make a difference in terms of which bracha do you make on schnitzel. Now, if you're using real breadcrumbs for your schnitzel, you might be surprised to learn that not everyone agrees that the schnitzel that you eat is shakol niyam zvaro. At the end of the day, this is a classic case of if you would have bread and you'd put a slice of deli on it, chicken, turkey, whatever it would be, which bracha would you recite? Who would tell you you'd make a shakol on that? Just because it's a bread crumb doesn't mean it's not bread anymore. It's an interesting question. We're going to talk about matzah balls eventually, and I guess that'll have more to do with what bracha we made on matzot in the first place, which is what we spoke about already last week and the week before. But B'ezrat Hashem, we'll continue these laws after we finish the halachot of the 3 weeks, which means that starting tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem, we'll be doing straight Shulchan Aruch, possibly with some other notes. I have to see if I have notes from Hava Peretz on the 3 weeks. If I don't have his notes on 3 weeks, then I certainly have my notes that I took when I learned from him on the 3 weeks, and I'll share with you as we go through the Shulchan Aruch, whatever is relevant. I just wanted to thank you all for being here tonight, for being patient with me in the beginning. Tomorrow evening we will have a Rambam class, so we'll start off with Rambam and go straight into Shulchan Aruch.